Good luck. Hey, and we're alive. Thank you for joining us for a great SEMrush webinar tonight or today. It depends on what time zone are you in. Okay, so we have a great webinar today. We're going to talk about Wix myths, and we're going to debunk them, and we're going to do whatever we can do with the smashing myths around the Wix. And we're going to wait everyone to join us. So feel free to write us in the chat. Where are you from? And if you have an experience with Wix sites, that will be amazing. And we'll be open to get any questions that you have on Wix, because we have the mighty Morty with us. Hey, from UK as well. Basically, this is a webinar that everyone hears around the world. So it's like a global webinar. So it's amazing. But yeah, basically, this webinar is recorded. It will be live on YouTube forever. So in case you want to watch it again and again and again, you can do it. So feel free to write us on the chat. Any questions that you have, we will collect all the best questions, and we'll try to answer any question that you might have on Wix websites regarding SEO or even in general. Okay, so hey, everyone, that's great. I think let's meet our guest today. So first one on from UK, we have Simon Cox. How are you, Simon?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm Simon Cox. I'm a very old person that deals with the web. Technical SEO, been around a bit. Lots of CMSs used over the years and stuff. So, hello.
Amazing, amazing. And you know what? I've heard that your last webinar with SEMrush was 2.5 years ago. So, you know what? In Israel, we have a say, no. So I'm hoping that you will have lots of webinars with SEMrush.
Let's hope so.
Okay, so the next guest for us is Alec. Alec, where are you based?
So I'm based out of Ottawa, currently downtown Ottawa, usually in Canada outside of Ottawa. I'm a senior analyst with Marie Haynes Consulting. So I spend a lot of my days auditing sites for our clients, consulting with our clients about a variety of site quality issues. I also manage our website, and when I'm not on the clock for Marie, I'm managing a site I own in the sports media space as well. So my experience with Wix sort of begins and ends with their SEO contest back in late 2019, which our team thankfully won.
That's great. You know what? My last experience with Wix.
We're not even into it yet, and you brought up the contest already.
That's why I'm here, Morty.
That's why I'm here too.
For very different reasons.
Very different reasons.
Well, you know what? My last experience with Wix was 10 years ago, and I think they had lots of problems since then. So, like, believe me, guys, I saw the slide. Like, yeah, we all saw the slide. So it's like really, I was literally, my jaw just dropped. Everything was just like really, it's like crazy. So, okay, so let's meet our evening star, which is the mighty Morty. I call him this because this is how he is listed on my phone.
Is it really?
I am. You.
I have a lot to live up to. I don't even lift weights anymore.
Morty, what is your role with Wix?
I am the Wix SEO liaison, the liaison to the SEO community. So basically, I'm here to advocate for the SEO community to Wix and back towards the SEO community from Wix. Take your feedback, take your comments, talk about what we're doing. I'm the great communicator of Wix to the SEO community.
Oh my God, we're going to communicate a lot about Wix today.
So much to talk about.
Yeah, totally. I'm super excited. Okay, so okay. I think let's get started. I just want to just remind everyone just to write us in comments all your questions for Wix. We're going to collect everything. So in the end of the webinar, we can just answer a bunch of them. I think not every day we have an opportunity to sit with a Wix specialist, let's say, from Wix, and to hear everything about SEO with Wix, and to see maybe we can work with Wix. For me, just like Wix for a lot of years were just a big no-no for SEO. So I'm delighted just to share this webinar with you guys today. Morty, take it away. Good luck.
All right, let's do this. Let's blow some minds, right? Share my screen. I always screw up where the present button is. There it is. Can you see my screen, Roz?
Yes, all good.
Okay, let's do it. Okay. Today, we're talking about Wix for SEO. I know, Wix for SEO. We're talking about separating the fact from the fiction and way beyond that. Just a little introduction. My name is Morty Oberstein. I'm the official liaison to the SEO community here at Wix. You can find me at Twitter. Like literally, you can always find me on Twitter at Morty Oberstein. That's my name with the @ sign. I made it really easy for you to find me on Twitter because I love Twitter. You may have seen me like on Twitter or doing podcasts or blog posts talking about Wix and SEO, but I want you to know that it's really not just me. There's an enormous team behind me or with me that we all work together to create and evolve the SEO platform or Wix platform for SEO. You're talking about thousands of engineers, UX writers, SEOs, even support people. There's a lot of people who are touching Wix in a lot of different ways to help us evolve our SEO offering. So just be aware of that. Why are we here? Well, one is to go through the myths and see what's really not true or what is true. To the evolution of Wix for SEO, how we've sort of changed. And through, we're going to talk about the road ahead. And I just want to say, I'm not here to sell Wix. I'm here to inform you, to show you what's changed, what's true, what's not true, so you can make your own decision about it. And hopefully that should be pretty clear by the time I'm done. Okay, let's start with the myths. Sort of my favorite, but I really want to get into how we've evolved. So I'm going to run through a couple of myths. These are real myths. Like I didn't make these up. These are things I hear all the time. A couple of these I debunked yesterday. It's part of my daily experience as the Wix SEO liaison. So these are not made up. These are things I hear all the time. So let's get with the first one. Myth number one, Wix sites can't be indexed. This is literally my favorite. It's my favorite because there's John Mueller sitting on the stage at Google I/O 2018 talking about an integration that we have with Google where we basically get your homepage indexed instantly when you connect the Search Console through Google. You'll get this message when you connect your Wix site to Search Console. It's basically like 30-second indexing of your homepage. And you say, oh, what about my other pages? They're pretty quick too. For example, Itamar Blauer did a little test. He created a Wix site, connected his homepage, and then somebody asked him, what about the rest of your pages? And he was like, well, they're all indexed in less than 24 hours. And then somebody said, well, that's strange. Why is Google giving index preference to a newer CMS? What about WordPress? That's an older CMS. Shouldn't that get preference? And then John Mueller was, well, that's kind of weird that we would give preference to indexing based upon how old the CMS is. So your pages get indexed really well with Wix. Your homepage gets indexed, basically indexed instantly. That myth is debunked. This one, out of all the myths, okay, some of the myths I find amusing. Some of them are just, okay, I'll just, walk myself through it, talk myself through it. This one kind of irks me, and it's you can't rank a Wix site. So that's not true according to Google in 2017. That's 4 years ago. Google came out and said, John Mueller said, hey, there's nothing wrong with the Wix site. They were completely fine for search. Just last week, John Mueller was talking about, hey, small businesses, the issues that they have are not technical SEO issues. The CMSs tend to get that right for the most part. It's really with content. Again, this is just last week. John Mueller is recommending that a small business should focus on their business, maybe use a closed CMS. There's really no issue from Google's perspective with Wix and ranking at all. And not according to SEMrush. If you throw Wix sites in, you'll see that they often rank really well. In this case, this is a Wix site with 131 featured snippets. As I said, there's a Wix site with 131 featured snippets. And you can see that their organic traffic is really great. Their performance has increased over time. They're doing really well. Now, you'll say, those are just branded keywords. Now, I'm not Jason Barnard. I'm not going to give you a whole lecture about the importance of branded keywords, but they're not just branded keywords. In fact, this particular site was a site, there is a site that talks about what to do with your kids in Milwaukee, which during a pandemic is nothing. So they pivoted and talk about now things that you can do online with your kids. So now this site ranks for things to do on FaceTime. They rank number 1 for things to do on FaceTime with an average search volume of 4,400 searches each month. In other words, it's not just branded keywords. But Morty, that's just one site. Okay, here's another site with 2,000 keywords ranking on page 1 of the SERP. I use SEMrush to filter and show just high search volume keywords, and you can see that they rank for some really competitive keywords. But Morty, that's just two sites. So here's another site. This site has 4,604 keywords, according to SEMrush, that rank on page 1 of the SERP, with 1,606 of them being among the top 3 results. And I filtered again to show high search volume keywords. And in fact, this website ranks number 1 for another brand's keywords. Here's another site. Again, 774 keywords on the page 1 of the SERP. They rank really well for really high search volume keywords, really competitive keywords. Here's another site. They rank number 1 for Batman PNG with a monthly search volume of around 3,000. And again, they have 1,300 keywords ranking on page 1 with 452 of them ranking among the top 3 results. Here's another site. It's a great site if you want to teach your kids about geography. They have 330 keywords ranking on the top 3 results and the 1,300 or so ranking on page 1 with keywords ranking number 1 for, say, volcano diagram with a monthly search volume of 5,400. I could do this all day. Like literally, I can do this all day. I have an enormous list of sites that meet certain organic traffic criteria, and it's like thousands of sites long. We have 200 million users. Many of them have more than one site. So we're talking way more than 200 million sites. Forget like the Wix infrastructure being completely fine for search according to Google. Just mathematically speaking, do you think that none of these sites rank? It's a little bit absurd. Wix sites rank. They rank really well. They do really well with organic traffic. It really all depends on what you do with your site and the content you create, just like John Mueller said. Okay, done with that. I'm off my soapbox. Myth number 3, but you can't do advanced SEO with Wix. Say hello to Velo. That's our full stack development tool. Yes, Wix has a full stack development tool because we don't cater to just small businesses. And you can use this to do all sorts of advanced things, that you can create databases and dynamically load content to your title tags or to your pages at set intervals and so forth. There's a lot you can do with this. I'll talk a little bit about what you can do with it in just a bit. Wix myth number 4. By the way, Wix myth is a tongue twister. Okay, you can edit your robot.txt file. That's actually not been true for a long while. This right here, this screenshot, that's the robot.txt file editor inside of Wix. You can clearly see that you can do whatever you want to customize your robot.txt file. And by the way, if you mess it up, because you might mess it up, we have a fun little thing called reset the default, so you can't really screw it up that badly. You just reset the default. Okay, myth number 5. You have canonical issues with your product collections. That's not us. I think you're confusing us with another CMS. We go back and we don't have any collection URLs. We use the original product page that you create in all the collections, and it's self-canonicalized. And if you engage with certain filters that add all sorts of parameters onto the end of the URL, that all gets canonicalized back to the original URL, to the original product page that you created. I like this picture in particular because I'm a Yankees fan. Myth number 6, Wix uses hashbang URLs. Really? No, we don't use hashbang URLs. That has not been true for a very long time. In fact, you can customize the slug and all your URLs to death. I'll talk more about customization of URLs at the end of this presentation. Myth number 7, Wix doesn't have a sitemap. I mean, no, we have sitemaps. Of course we do. In fact, they get automatically submitted to Google. We have them per page type. So for your store, for your blog, different sitemaps. We max them out at 10,000 URLs and then create another sitemap. So if you have 20,000 URLs, that's 2 sitemaps. 30,000 URLs, that's 3 sitemaps. I can do this all day. I'm currently rolling out right now, and this is a big shout out to our lead technical SEO, Nati Elimelech, because the Wix sitemap is his pet project. Rolling out as we speak right now. We're not including URLs that have been no indexed or URLs that have been canonicalized, and also URLs behind gates. Now you'll ask me, Morty, okay, so you automatically submit, the Wix automatically submits the URL to Google, but can Google read that? Yes, this is my search console. I didn't do anything. This is for what my personal website that I have on Wix. It was automatically submitted. I didn't do anything. And as you can see by the green check there, Google processed the sitemap completely successfully. Okay, Wix myth number 8. Wix uses client-side rendering. No, we use dynamic rendering, server-side rendering. All the issues of client-side rendering do not apply to Wix, and they have not applied to Wix for a very long time. By the way, since we're talking about infrastructure, and this is where it gets interesting for me, let's talk about Wix images and your site. I'm going to go back to the myths in a second, but just bear with me. For images, we convert all of your image files to WebP when appropriate, meaning when the browser supports it. We implement lazy loading. We also use low-quality image placeholders, which works really well with the lazy loading should your images be below the fold, and we automatically compress your images without sacrificing quality. Back to the myths. Wix sites are slow, and this one gets a little bit more complicated. So we are not slow on desktop. We do really well on desktop, and I know what you're thinking, but by the way, desktop's really important for CRO. It means making money. Anyway, over the past year over year, we have reduced the time it takes for your page to be interactive, think, TTI kind of thing, by 50% on desktop and 40% on mobile. That's an enormous shift, enormous change. And that has resulted in your desktop pages having great scores on desktop. Mobile obviously saw a boost because of this, but not to the same way as desktop. It's certainly possible to be speedy on mobile if you are familiar with how to optimize your site for page speed. That said, we understand that there's more to be done here around the mobile page speed and mobile performance, and it is going to be done. We're very much working on it and dedicating a lot of resources to that. I will say we want to do this in a way where you don't have to worry what template you use. It should be that you feel you can go to Wix and feel comfortable in the fact that you'll create a site that will be performing well. We take ownership over this. I'm actually really excited about it because I think we're going to be leading the race here a little bit. Just to show you in terms of core web vitals, so the change that I mentioned before regarding page interactivity, think TTI, you can see that change being implemented around August. And this is Crux data. This is the percentage of websites with all good, percent of Wix websites with all good core web vitals. And you see that number starting to rise up as we implemented that interactivity change that I mentioned before. That's going to continue to go up, I expect, as we fully integrate the changes that I just spoke about. But again, we understand more work needs to be done, and we're dedicating a ton of resources to it. I will say, and this is something that's important when thinking about a closed CMS, what you do does matter. So as much as we can and much as we will work to improve mobile page speed, what you do does matter. For example, if you're going to load 4,000 PNGs onto your homepage is not going to have quick performance or optimized performance. So what you do does matter. It's really important to what you do. That means using the right file. We do compress the files for you, but we're going to compress down from the original file size. So you can compress down from a PNG or you can compress down from a JPEG. The number of fonts that you use, all of these things play into how your site performs. So what you do does matter. With that, you can cache your static pages with Wix. And you might say, well, they are my static pages, but I do want to make changes to them. So you can tell us how often you want us to cache those pages, ranging from every 2 hours, every hour to every 24 hours. And again, all of those engineers that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, we're on it, we get it, and we're dedicating a ton of resources to implementing improvements around mobile page speed. Now let's talk about the evolution of Wix. I think this, to me, is the most interesting part of the entire spiel here. So I'm going to start with a matter of philosophy, and I'll quote our lead technical SEO, Naftali Elimelech, about this again. We try to create the best defaults for our users who are not SEOs, who are not technical savvy, who might be a business owner, entrepreneur of any kind, that don't really know about SEO. So we try to provide them the best defaults as possible and the best out-of-the-box solutions as possible, while giving you, the SEOs, as much customization as possible. One of the ways you really see this is with how we implement structured data. So for your dynamic pages, like events, like products, like bookings, and so forth, we create out-of-the-box markup for you. So theoretically, you don't have to do anything. If you, let's say, for your product pages, we create the markup for you. And that really can be significant. For example, when Google updated the event markup criteria, when you had a paid event to include the currency property. So Wix sites, when that update hit, had to do literally nothing. We already had that property included in the out-of-the-box markup that we provided. Our users had to do nothing to comply with the new requirement. At the same time, we understand that you might want to add properties to your structured data markup that might be unique or might be applied to a very specific scenario. So if you want to override the out-of-the-box markup we provide for those dynamic pages, you can, using our full stack developer tool, Velo, that I mentioned before. Since we're talking about structured data, You can add custom markup to your static pages. Just pop in whatever code you want in JSON-LD, and it's pretty straightforward right there in the editor for you. Since we're talking about customization, we offer you the ability to implement what we call a tag logic. It's basically a way of doing updating your tags, whether it be your OG tags, your title tags, meta descriptions, in a scalable and efficient way. I'll give you an example of how this might work. So let's say, for example, you're an SEO who believes that meta descriptions are really not that important, which, hey, I might personally agree with you a little bit. So you want to say, hey, I want to implement, I don't want to have to write 2,000 meta descriptions for all my products. Wix, can you just pull in my product description off the page into my meta descriptions? Yes, one click, you can do that. Or let's say you wanted to add the currency or the price. Let's say the price to all of your event title tags. So you could, with one click, automatically add all of the pricing, all the prices for your events into your title tags. You can do that for your products. You can do that for your events. You can say, do it for my products, but not for my events, because it works by page type. And of course, as you update, let's say the pricing on your page itself, we automatically update the tag for you, so you don't have to actually do anything. That's just one example of what you can do with this. Okay, speaking of tags, you can add up to 10 custom tags to your static pages. And let's talk about redirects really quickly. So we offer a really easy way to do redirects, and you can group redirect, meaning that if the URL follows the same, if the redirect follows the same path, you can do it in a group. We check for errors, and we tell you when there's redirect loops. And yes, you can bulk upload 500 redirects at a time. And we have a template that you can use to make it really easy. And there too, we check for errors and we check for redirect loops. GMB integration. Now I'm announcing this here now. This is a SEMrush exclusive. This is currently rolled out in the UK, and it's rolled out for 50% of our US users. We've integrated with Google My Business. That means that you can import your current listings into Wix. You can also create a listing from Wix. You can adjust your listings and update your listings inside of Wix. And you can do things like reply to reviews inside of Wix. And you can see all of your Google My Business data inside of Wix. And as this continues to roll out, you can expect to see some more abilities being added right from the Wix dashboard around your Google My Business listing. The road ahead. Let's talk about some of the things that we're working on, because this is also really exciting to me. First off, structured data, of course. So we're working on adding the ability to add more than one structured data, one markup to your static pages. After that, we're going to make it easier for you to override the out-of-the-box markup we create on many of your dynamic pages, meaning if you're an SEO who's not comfortable using a full stack developer tool, you'll be able to override the out-of-the-box markup we create, add your own properties without having to use the development tool, pretty much out of the editor sort of thing. Log file analysis is very close to being released. I actually teased this on Twitter a few weeks ago. Whether it be Googlebot or whether it actually be SEMrush, you can see how the bots are interacting with your sites. You can see how often they're crawling certain pages. You can see that by you can see which pages according to response type. You can filter that according to a million different ways. It's really amazing data that's not usually or not readily available to SEOs, that will be in the very near future available to you right in the Wix platform, right in the Wix dashboard for all of your sites. More on the sitemap, again, not these big pet projects. So we're currently implementing sitemaps with image URLs. We're going to work on video objects after that. And after that, multi-language URLs to the sitemap. This one's a personal passion of mine. We're doing a lot more around SEO education. That means, and in the coming weeks, we'll be launching a brand new SEO hub, walking our users through how to do SEO. It's content written by SEOs for our users to sort of help them understand what it means to do SEO, understand that SEO is a long-term strategy that can get complicated, and it's variant according to your different, the kind of site that you're working with. Some really good educational content for our users. We're implementing new videos inside of the product to show our users how to best use our SEO tools. And we're doing webinars, a series of webinars for our users and for the wider public with folks in the SEO community like SEMrush and like Liraz, who's here with us right now. If you like a refresher on competitive analysis for SEO, and join our users tomorrow. It's SEMrush presenting with Liraz, all about competitive analysis. This is just one in a whole series of webinars all aimed at updating our users about best SEO practices and what's going on in the industry. Something I'm really excited about. Oh, yeah, totally forgot. I mentioned URLs before. Custom URLs. Full-on customization for your URLs is coming to Wix in the relative near future. It's in QA. It's coming soon. We don't know how the development process goes. I can't give you a hard date, but it's been teased. It's full-on customization for your URL so that you can create the site structure, the site hierarchy that you like to. And I'll end on this. We'd really like your feedback. Take Wix for a test run. Let me know what you think. What did you like? Because what you like actually helps us know what to develop in the future as well. What we could do better at, what your overall feedback is. My DMs are open. I literally live on Twitter. Find me at Morty Oberstein. Reach out. Tell me what you think. I would love to hear your feedback and bring it to the team. And with that, I will turn it back to our illustrious panel. Hi, panel.
Amazing. You guys can hear me?
I think I've left everybody speechless.
Hi. Okay, so I think it was really amazing, and I'm really impressed by Wix, like such a large company investing so many efforts with SEO. That is amazing. Did you know that this hired like the top of SEOs that I actually know in person just to fix all those SEO issues? That's like really, it's something that we should all we appreciate with Wix. It's amazing. I don't really know a lot of companies that will invest so many efforts with SEO. So, bravo.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is. It is brilliant. It is.
No, it's by the way, it's
wow.
top
We have
down.
lots of questions.
Let's do it.
Let's tackle some of these questions, right? Okay, so why is my Wix Analytics is different from Google Analytics, and how do we know which one is more accurate? Just for Morty.
Well, I mean, look, so we're measuring different things in different ways. I can't answer in specific why it's completely different for your particular site. Then again, like our Wix Analytics, I don't know if you're looking at your store analytics. We have some really great stuff around your store product that you can't get in analytics, by the way, just so you know. When you're trying to track events, let's say for your store or purchase, those sort of things, we automatically send the data to analytics, to Google Analytics, so you don't have to use Tag Manager to set up those events. It's hard for me to answer without like knowing this particular case and exactly the metric that you're talking about. But they're two very different products.
I can answer that. No analytics package is accurate. You have to look at your log files to get absolute accurate numbers. Full
Log
stop.
files will be there. Log files will be there.
That's great.
But just follow the trends. If you follow the trends of what's happening,
let's
then
go for
Like, use analytics for the trends in general. Use analytics for the trends. Like it's not meant to be. I got 433 users today looking at my page. It's like that's not how to use analytics.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And we've lost the res. Just carry on.
All right. What else we got? Simon, the show is yours.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's look at what questions we got.
While Simon's doing that.
She's back.
Sorry. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. We can hear you before. We just overtalked you.
Well, she was on a delay, I think.
Okay.
I blame Wi-Fi.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. So I think Simon, maybe you can take it. How is it complicated to move from WordPress to Wix?
Actually, I don't know the answer to this completely because I've not done it. But what I do know is that you can import a WordPress blog post in. And if you're shifting off WordPress, you won't be able to use a theme because the themes are different. But you'll want a new theme anyway. You won't want the rubbishy old theme you've had on WordPress that's causing you all sorts of security issues. You'll want to build yourself a brand new, lovely theme yourself.
There's a lot of documentation around this, so check that out.
Oh, yeah? That's really great. Maybe you can send it on Twitter. That will be nice for some of the users. Because I had experience with migrating from CMS to another. That's a really complicated move. a lot of manual work and a lot of things that basically can be very complicated for maybe for small business owners, that's for sure, but even for companies that want to move. So that can be a nice knowledge share to share.
Yep.
I'll add something to that as well. It will be the same for any platform, not just moving from WordPress to Wix. If you move to any other platform, you're going to run through the same problems. Most platforms have got a WordPress importer, but you're going to have a lot of other problems. If you're using the marketing tools in Wix, I don't think you'll be able to port stuff over from WordPress straight into it, but then it is a different system. And that's going to happen anyway.
Site migration is a
is.
great SEO headache.
It is crazy. Alec, I think this one is for you. What made your team comfortable with going into the Wix contest with SEO?
So Morty's already laughing.
No, I'm not laughing. Hey, you guys won. That's great.
We won as the best one of two. So keep that in mind. I think maybe there's a little bit of context required. There was the Wix contest. I believe it was called the Wix SEO Hero Contest, if I recall correctly, back in, I don't know when that was, but unlike that one, this wasn't a open field of competition. So it was a 1v1 battle between a team that got selected as sort of quote unquote the Wix SEO lovers, which was us at Marie Haynes Consulting. So we had to build our site on Wix, and then we were competing against another team that was called the Wix SEO Haters, who got to choose a platform of their own preference, and in this case went with unsurprisingly maybe WordPress. So the crux of the competition was basically who could win superior ranking position for a particular query. So in this case, the particular query was Wix SEO. So it became a pretty good rivalry. A lot of fun was had. Lessons were learned, not the least of which is just how silly SEO contests are in general. But we did win the grand prize of $25,000. So I guess to answer the question more directly, which was why were we comfortable with it? I guess we just kind of had an open mind about it. Like we weren't really intimidated by the reputation, even if we were kind of, anticipating hurdles. We understood that, as Morty just kind of outlined, granted, this is a year and a half ago, but there were a number of advancements in Wix SEO by this point, certainly since like the hashbang Wix days, if you want to call it that. So as of 2016, we knew that Wix had moved to server-side rendering for a lot of things. They, in essence, Wix was no longer sort of relying on Googlebot to execute the JavaScript successfully to actually get all the content. It was now kind of right there in the initial response through server-side rendering. And they kind of had adopted, as Wix engineers had kind of outlined and we were in tune to, they had deprecated their old Scala server. They were now using, they had previously been using, like a duplicate logic where they're sort of using a React app to sort of for the initial for the JavaScript. And then they were also using like a Scala server that could actually render the HTML for specifically for bots, so search engine bots. Now we knew that there was a node server in place where an HTML version was returned plus all the JavaScript. So I guess the long and short of that is we had fewer concerns about the actual speed and reliability of the indexing of the site's content, which previous to these kind of developments would have been our biggest worries. As WordPress fans and users, where there was all kinds of like features and flexibilities and enhancements in the form of plugins that we knew we would kind of miss about WordPress as we sort of built up our Wix site. But for example, we didn't have the arsenal of tools we would have had to speed up the website the same way as we would have on WordPress. But we had a staff member who had never built a website before sort of work through the initial stages of the setup, the design process. It was all pretty seamless. So we knew that Wix had recently formed like a partnership with Google, like Morty outlined in his presentation. So you could connect with Google Search Console. You could send a sitemap to Google for them to index, all really within minutes within the sort of setup wizard or whatever the terminology they use for it with Wix. So it was all kind of quick and easy that way, and we weren't anticipating troubles with that. For the purposes of the contest, like the plus side of something like Wix for people that are using it is obviously that it's essentially a managed environment, right? Like for the site owner, a lot of the technical details are going to be taken care of for you without you really knowing what the hell's going on. So that's important for small business websites. It's important for Joe bloggers, right? And we're essentially in this contest, we just looked at ourselves as the average Joe blogger who was we're basically just going to be building a very simple 20 to 30 page blog website. We weren't going to be doing anything crazy. So our theory of the case, as it were, was sort of like we're basically going to focus on the quality and knowing that these indexing concerns aren't really as relevant now. We're going to be focusing on the quality of the content, the optimization of that content, and there's a lot of handy tools that make that really simple for even staff members in our office who had not built websites to do. And it was going to come down to our ability to kind of drive links, drive engagement, create good content, and we were going to lean heavily on the agency, which is headed by Maureen Haynes, obviously, to basically drive those kind of links and that kind of engagement. So we were fairly, I guess, platform agnostic is the way to put it in terms of our approach to the actual contest. Like we knew that it would be kind of a fun experience, honestly, on the Wix side of it. It was something we had no experience in whatsoever. And we knew that like all of our most critical concerns in terms of getting content indexed easily and quickly was going to be much less of a concern than I think a lot of people thought it was going to be for us. So from there, it was kind of just a case of the traditional way of going about SEO, which is what are we going to do with our content that's actually going to drive traffic and links and engagement.
That's really what it is. It's about content. I mean, like I'll say about the contest, if you want to understand like how the evolution of how that came about, I'm happy to. I've actually talked about it in a couple of podcasts before, but leaving that aside for a moment, we're obviously very much focused more now on things like upgrading the product, making sure the product is where it should be for SEO and offering SEO education to our users, as well as connecting with the industry and just updating all of y'all on what we're doing. So the contest is great, but we've taken a little bit of a different turn around that. I will say, by the way, about the sites, it really applies what you're saying to local business, small business, big businesses. I used to work for a major property management company a long time ago, way back when. And they're a big company. They have a website. They sort of have a website because I guess you have to have a website. It's not built on Wix. It's built on WordPress, and it's a disaster. And they're a major company, but it's just something that they haven't paid attention to. It's something that they haven't focused on, and that's something that I feel like that would be a good solution for a Wix site. Would give if all they had to do was focus on running their business and creating a little bit of content. So that's also a little bit of a myth. Like, oh, well, Wix is only good for your SMB. It is really good for an SMB, but it's good for a whole host of other kinds of sites. By the way, and that goes to speaking, by the way, I'll take, Core Web Vitals is a good example of this, right? Where you have a WordPress site, but raise your hand if you're an SEO and you really understand how to fix Core Web Vitals, right? So there's an economy of scale with the platform.
I'm working on
it. Simon, right? The Roz has it like, man,
I know a few, things that we can.
No, it's really a lot of it's developer stuff, right? And there's an economy of scale with Wix that, hey, if we're serious about it, and we are, by the way, literally, it's from the CEO down. I literally mean that, from the CEO down, about handling mobile page speed and Core Web Vitals. If that's the case, then you have an economy of scale where you have developers working on it for you, where even if you are a great SEO, in theory, you wouldn't have to worry about it to such an extent. So there's a lot that goes into considering all these various things. And I'm rambling now, and I'll hand the mic back to Liraz.
My if I can jump in, my curiosity, Morty, is more. So the biggest challenge that we faced in the competition was, how do we optimize mobile speed performance, which was, by your own admission, horrible, and we couldn't do much about it. Like, there were some small things we did, like we could, don't use pings or GIFs instead of videos and JPEGs and so on. Some Wix users you'll see they're so reliant on visual elements. They'll put a lot of like critical content in sort of large images above the fold and in galleries and various things.
Well, let's be fair. Everybody does that.
Fair enough, but I do think like textual content above the fold can help. Static. We found that the static, like the sort of the caching of static pages help to some degree, but because the payload of JavaScript and the amount of time that was spent sort of compiling and executing that, it was really hard for us to improve on that throughout the duration of the contest.
Ironically speaking, that's a little bit of a myth in itself. The Google flattens out the code, so it's not exactly where the issue comes from. But to that, like I mentioned before, we've increased mobile the equivalent of mobile TTI by 40%. So yeah, it's obviously something like the speed that you saw in 2019 on mobile is not the speed that I would say around 85% of our users at this point are seeing on mobile. But you're right, to that, right? There's more work to be done there. That's just really the first step. It's work that, by the way, that initial change is still being rolled out and is still being moved across our various verticals. In other words, all of our various we call them apps, but it's things like the blog and the store. They have to adapt that and implement it on their own side, and that's currently ongoing. So even that bump, that 40% increase that we talked about year over year, that's going to keep going up, even with just this one change. But again, like there's more changes coming. Obviously, it's something that I think is something that everybody needs to work about. Screaming Frog did a study and showed 15% of all sites across the web pass Core Web Vitals, and it's something that's really hard. There's a great article today on Search Engine Journal about this. Like it's not easy. Like for example, if you upload that image, you have a hero image up top, unless you have a strip behind it, and the color of the strip doesn't match the color of the image, so you're slow your page. Who knows that? I only know that because I talk to developers all day long, or half the day. So it's a way more complicated issue than just Wix. But again, like I'll say it again, it's literally from the CEO down. It's something that we're very much focused on.
That's amazing. Simon, do you think that Google understands better JavaScript-based sites? Like, what do you say for someone that is afraid moving to JavaScript-based sites today?
Yeah, very good question. So certainly they've made massive strides in understanding how JavaScript works. And from my experience so far with Wix the last year, when I took a client on in November 2019, we've had no problems with it at all. Everything renders, well, nearly everything renders right. I know there was one big problem I had at the beginning, but that's being fixed with the drop-down menus. I know that's on the cards. As long as you can crawl stuff, Google will find it. And yeah, I can't see any problems with Wix at all now.
That's great. Like, I think this is the best, the most scariest thing like an SEOs can hear. Like, yeah, I have a JavaScript-based site. Yeah, I'm moving to Gatsby. Yeah, I'm moving to, I don't know. So this is something that most of SEOs are really, really scared of. And so this session is really great for all of you that is really scared of everything. So that's great. Thank you, Simon. I have a question from Jason Bernard. The amazing Jason Bernard. What are the pros and cons of a Wix website versus WordPress for a personal website?
Can I just interrupt here? As also from Liz Beals, she actually asked it first, but Jason jumped in with the ex-Yorkshireman as he is, and Frenchman as he now is, jumped in and just took over. Carry on, sorry.
Hi, Jason. Wait, now I totally forgot the question. Oh, for a personal site?
Yeah, for a personal site.
No, it's for a personal site, like imagine it's your personal blog, it's your personal marketing site. I think that goes back to what John was saying last week. John Mueller was saying last week, right? You want to be able to focus on the business in this case of being you, if that's a personal website. So imagine you're Beyonce, right? You don't want to focus on editing your robot docs. So you're making sure you have structured data implemented. Oh no, Google has updated their structured data requirements. I need to go back and edit, 4,000 pages of structured data stuff, right? You want to be able to focus on being Beyonce and being fabulous and writing some content around being fabulous and being Beyonce. So it lets you, it enables you to offer, it's a great, easy way to spin up a website that works really well for search, that enables you to rank really well and enables you to be what you want to be. It lets you be you with, I mean, this is so marketing the way I'm saying it. It lets you do what you need to do so that you can focus on what you want to do and create the good content that'll rank.
Yeah, that's good. I think like most of personal sites owners, I think that they would find Wix pretty comfortable, like for all the needs. Like it's something that like a magic goes on, and you basically just focus on your writing and focus on your blogging, focus on the business. So this is something that I think every personal business or even small and medium business can find it useful.
There's
Sure.
There's always trade-offs with like a closed versus open CMS, right? It's at whatever way you go, like there are going to be more out of the box features probably. It's going to be more hands off. You're likely to have fewer enhancements available to you in the form of like plugins and different theme options and so on. But like an example of we built just as a friends and family sort of thing, we built a WordPress site for a small business that wanted one. And you're on we picked a theme of their choosing that would work. And they were years into having this site and they wanted to highlight a bunch of products above the fold. So the limitations of the WordPress theme was that they would have had to sort out a plugin of some kind that would have handled that for them. And in this case, they couldn't find one that worked with the theme. So, maybe the theme didn't support it. Maybe they didn't have the technical know-how to implement it. They couldn't do it without custom coding, right? So it's like either what are you going to do? You're going to get a new theme, or you're going to go get a developer to handle that for you. Whereas if we had set them up on Wix, and this isn't me advocating for Wix over WordPress by any means, but it would have been a simple DIY drag and drop sort of thing, where it's like they could have made that change happen just as easily as they could drag files around their desktop, right? In terms of that change they could have implemented within the UI.
Right. I mean, that's really the point. Like we don't want, and then look, if you want to implement functionality like that, that's why we have that full stack dev tool. You can implement all the JavaScript functionality you want. You could do way more than you could with a plugin, right? But if you're Beyonce, you're not doing that, and you shouldn't be doing that. I mean, somebody the other day said to me, "Well, Wix is no good if you can't have access to your server." Forget a small business, but most SEOs shouldn't have access to their server. John Mueller, by the way, quoting a lot of John Mueller today, said, "Yeah, that's a great way to lock yourself out of your site."
Okay, going up to the next question. Is there a difference between static Wix page and dynamic, like blog pages, regarding rendering indexing? That there is some feeling that it takes more time for Google to reveal an index post than static pages. What do you think about that, Morty?
I mean, to my understanding, no, right? It's all about, in terms of performance itself, it's all dependent upon, obviously the main Wix infrastructure, but again, what's on the page as well. The only difference that I can think of on top of my head in terms of performance would be that the dynamic pages you can't, which makes sense. You can't cache them because they're dynamic pages. You're constantly updating them. But in terms of indexing, no. I mean, that's the example that Itamar had. Like he indexed his homepage really quickly, instantly with the connection that we have with Google, and then he said his blog pages were indexed within less than 24 hours.
When we did the contest, Morty, you could no index at the page level, for instance, but yep. You couldn't do it at the post level with blog posts. So like once the site editor would send you to the I think I called it the post manager. Simon might know this better than me. And the SEO options got a lot more limited once you're into the post manager versus the page manager when it came to no indexing, canonicalization, so on.
So ironically, the full SEO panel that you have in the editor is currently rolling out to the blog. It's one of the things that's rolling out right now. So you can have full canonicalization. You can, you'll have the no index there, but you have access to the robot.txt file. So in theory, if you're an SEO working on the site, you can do it that way.
Interesting. Alan, can you tell us a little bit about how did you choose the what's important in a template, like in a theme, when you're choosing to work with Wix?
So we just tried to pick the lightest weight one we could find. For our purposes, like I said, we just needed something that could functionally provide 10 to 20 blog posts that we could display. So we tried a couple different things to speed it up. I don't know if we didn't know this. I don't know about the average Wix user, but like there's an actual separate mobile design editor where you actually can go in and make a more mobile optimized edition of your website. I'm not sure if everyone knows you can do both of those things. We of course were careful with our image use and so on and so forth. We tried to cut down on the amount of visual elements we were using above the fold, especially. We rendered less content in images and so on. For the prettiness of the design and so on, it can be tempting to use like a bunch of different font types and so on and so forth, but I wouldn't advise it just because, it might look great, but I don't know if you know what you're really doing to yourself. And then again, we sort of leveraged the static content. So we were a little bit, we weren't too particular about the theme we went with. We just tried to test one that scored a little bit better, to be honest. And then we kind of just took over from there with trying to make it as light as we possibly could.
That's good. Morty, because I hear a lot of people in the chat, like I ask them, what is it so difficult to move from another theme to another? Like, is it?
That's just the way the platform is set up. I don't know the answer. That's a great question. It's above my pay grade. Wait, Simon's about to say something. I didn't mean to cut you off, Simon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was just about to say one of the issues I came across last year, and it's kind of been fixed for a little bit, but I'm hoping for more fixes on this. There is a lovely element you can pull in called a repeater.
Right.
And in that repeater on a page, you can design it how you want, and each section of it changes. And it's really good for displaying blog posts and news items, etc., etc. You can also attach that repeater to a database. And in Wix, you can build those databases very quickly and very easy. Just press a button, say, well, on a database, and you can build that out however you want. You can then download that as a CSV, fill it out, chuck it back up. Really good for doing that. However, when you connect that repeater to a database, it can delay the page load. So my top tip at the moment, because I'm sure they're going to fix this, is that probably some caching or something, is get that below your fold in the first screen. Don't have any repeaters up the top bit. Shift it down just so that first page gets built quickly, and then that'll help with Google especially.
Yep, that's the content manager. Yeah, and it's something. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we're working on there to take it to the next level because it's a really cool tool, and it's really nice. It makes it really easy to look. Half of SEO is about content, right? Maybe more than half of SEO is about content. I'm not getting to that battle, but it makes it really easy to do things around your products, around your blog posts. But yes, there are some things that need to be upgraded that we do know about.
I think that's great. I think we have like a really cool question here. Elementor versus Wix battle. Like, what is the what do you think like the pros and cons versus Elementor?
I don't know.
Templates and everything that like kits that anyone can implement when starting a website.
I don't know enough about Elementor to comment on that. I don't feel comfortable. I've never used it before. I know it's not going to give you the same sort of like ease functionality as Wix is going to offer you, but again, like I haven't used it enough, or haven't used it. I mean, I've looked at it really quickly, but I haven't actually used it enough to say. Maybe
I haven't really either, but we've had 3 or 4 WordPress sites that have come along and who've had a plugin essentially break Elementor. It's constantly a struggle that we've dealt with.
Wow. I think, I'm a power user with Elementor, breaking news. But basically, I think eventually, Elementor versus equals WordPress site. So I think the main thing, if I can answer for Kimberly here, that asked about sales template and everything like that. So yeah, I think when Wix website, we do have massive templates, and so I think these are the things that can easily replace Elementor versus Wix. But Elementor can just ease the design and templates
Right.
and things like that, just a drag and drop, how to build a page, because. I don't know, 10 years ago when we used to build like a WordPress site, you had to get like a massive theme and everything was super, super heavy. Today is not the situation with WordPress sites, and with Wix, this is like the ease, like this is the pros that basically can have everyone build like this, like a website with 1 hour. So Kimberly, that's for you. Jason Bernard is asking, what is the percentage of sites in the world that are using Wix? Do you know the answer for that?
I think don't quote me on this. Oh man. I think it's 1.5 or 2%. Don't quote me on this. It's somewhere around there. I think WordPress is basically like what, 93, 94%. I know that Yoast put out a study on this recently. Every month they do a study on this, right? And I saw it and I can't remember if the number was 2 or 1.5%. But that's not an official number, by the way. That was Yoast's study. So take it or leave it.
Also,
Wow.
it doesn't matter. Jason's left for the evening. He's gone, so who cares?
Yeah, we have another question about comparison.
I'll DM him.
Duda versus Wix versus Squarespace. Wow, that's like, I think like it's going to be, woo! Well, yeah, Duda is also amazing CMS and also doing great results and also investing a lot of improvement with the Core Web Vitals. I personally know it. So, but I think everyone should basically just try everything and see how it feels for them. Is it comfortable for them? What is the process? What is the wizards doing for them? What things that they need to let go, and just build a website and focus on business. This is the best advice, like I think.
I think that applies from WordPress to Squarespace to Wix to Shop. It's the same thing. Like there's different folks with different strokes. What you need and what we offer, what you need and what WordPress offers, you have to take that all into consideration, and you have to figure out what's best for you. I don't think there's a one size fits all CMS. If that's what you're asking.
Exactly. Okay, so let's go for a couple of speedy questions before we end the webinar. Let's say, is there a list of the best, lightest Wix templates for page speed on mobile?
I have no idea. We don't. Again, like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we don't look at it as by a per template issue. Like the fundamental Wix structure should give you the optimal performance as possible. That's the way we look at it. You shouldn't have to worry. I mean, unless you're using a template from 10 years ago. But if you're using one of the templates that we mainly offer, you shouldn't really have to worry about your performance. That's our goal.
Totally. What about the HD access file? Does Wix give access to that?
Talking about to your servers? We're back on this? Okay. I don't think most people, again, I'll quote John Mueller, most people should don't play with your server. There's no really need for it. Wix has you're talking again about a really large company with a vast amount of servers placed all over the world. We have a wonderful content network, CDN. You shouldn't really have to worry about this at all with Wix. And I don't think that for most people, the recommendation is that you touch that sort of thing, because you might end up in more trouble than it's worth.
And the redirects manager is pretty user-friendly.
Yes, it's really user-friendly. You don't need to do it. We make it really easy. We check for your redirect loops. We check for your errors. You don't really have to do, though it's recommended, you don't really have to do an audit of your redirects if you're using Wix. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying technically speaking.
Amazing, really impressive. Last question. I think Simon can take it. How do iframes, embeds, or app install help, hurt, or affect SEO?
Well, embeds are okay. Iframes, not so much. They come from another website, and crawlers will just pass over it. So, yeah, the embeds are fine. And Wix is very good at embeds, so you can embed your YouTube videos in there quite happily. So, yeah, no problem.
Great. Yeah, iframes. No.
No,
Not
no,
that
you wouldn't do that on any site, on any CMS system. It's just not your. It's content from somewhere else. People used to build sites using iframes, etc., and they look great and they work great, and you could do stuff, but you can't crawl them.
Exactly. Just empty. Okay, so I think that's a wrap. We had a great webinar, really insightful. I think everything was so new to everyone. And if you have any question that we haven't got the time to answer this, just tweet us on Twitter, tweet Morty,
Absolutely.
tweet every one of us. We will happy to answer you. And I think the best advice we can take from here, just take the test drive with Wix and just try it on. I personally had so many bad ideas on Wix before I saw the slides yesterday. So I just took the test drive with Wix this morning. It was like totally impressed. So thank you so much, and was really, really good. All the roadmap as well was so interesting. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to it and see the process of Wix with SEO and how it's done. So thank you so much. It's really, really appreciated.
Absolutely. So I want to say a big shout out to the Wix team for doing all the hard work around this. But I will definitely keep you updated and posted. You can count on it. Check it out. By the way, please DM me on Twitter. My DMs are open. I would love to hear from you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Morty. Thank you so much, Simon and Alec. You were terrific. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.